Hey, hi everyone. Thank y'all for joining our Beef Brunch News update on Halloween. It is cold and wet, as y'all know. We do record these on Monday afternoon. I left Farmerville about 5:30 this morning, drove through Alexandria to Baton Rouge. I'm sitting back in Alexandria now before I head home, and so I know the southern part of the state is not getting any rain. It's kind of misting and gross here at the Dean Lee Research Station. And I know that Lee is freezing and cold and wet over at State Fair. He's called in, so I'm going to go ahead and let Lee go first today so he can get back over to our hog show. So, Lee, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Very glad to be with you all. In fact, we finished up the hog show at the state fair. The state fair has kind of been all encompassing the last week or so. So forgive me if I'm not as prepared as I normally am. Not to say that I normally am prepared, but Ashley is correct. It is cold up in northern Louisiana, northwest Louisiana in particular. Temperatures hovering right now in the 43, 44 somewhere degree range. Had a lot of rainfall in the last couple of weeks since we've talked last, particularly in the northwest part of the state. Not so much north central, but northwest has received substantial rainfall. Several inches have fallen over the last week or so, particularly in the Shreveport area, and so that is welcome news for those folks over that way. I know that Vince and everybody in central and southern Louisiana would greatly appreciate a good measurable rainfall. The farther east you go, the lighter the amounts have gotten, but most everybody has gotten some, and that's done a lot to alleviate some fears about these winter plantings. There's been several producers that I've talked to that have had voiced concerns over germinated winter forage plantings and wanting to get a rain on them and worried what's going to happen if they don't. So it's sure helped us up this way, and we hope that the rest of the state gets in on it too and are able to experience some of this much needed rainfall. The downside to the rain is that it is accompanied by a strong cold front. It's been hot, folks, up in North Louisiana as a whole in the last 2 weeks since we've talked the last on this update. Humid, very hot. Temperatures in the 80s. I don't have to tell y'all that. If you work outside much, you've surely experienced that. But it's been very warm, very humid, and it has allowed producers to get that last cutting of hay. What little there has been there to get, they've been able to mostly get done. I would say most everyone is done now on their final cutting or scrapping of hay for the year. There may be a few outliers, but that leads me to my last weather related kind of report, so to speak. And that's the temperatures. I said it's 43, 44 degrees. They're calling for nighttime lows down, maybe not tonight, but tomorrow night, I believe it is, down into 28, 29 degrees up here. So it looks like our first frost will be our first freeze too. So that's really going to negatively affect everything. The warm season forages are done. They've been done for the most part. There's been maybe some green tinge of color to some, and maybe a little bit of beneficial growth here and there. But all that's going to come to a screeching halt if these low temperatures are realized. In fact, we might see a little frost tonight. In fact, of course, we're recording this on a Monday and everything. So it's that time of year. We expect it. We usually don't see 20s this time of year. That usually comes later on into November or early December, but it is what it is, and we're going to get it. One of the sad things is that some of the areas that received rainfall in the last 2 weeks, you could actually see some green up, ever so slight green up in Bermuda grass in particular. But the temperatures are going to take care of that. I don't have a market report for you all this week, and I started to compiling one, and the data was so light that I just it would not have been accurate to even report it because of how light the data was. But I can give you some general takes I see on the market. We've experienced a pretty good setback across the cattle industry as a whole in the last 2 weeks, folks. Friday before last, we had a very bearish cattle on feed report that hit the market, and it hit it hard, particularly on the futures markets, and it just cascaded and trickled down into the cash cattle markets and all the way down to the yearling markets, calf markets. Cull cows and bulls experienced it, but not maybe quite the degree. I've really come to rely on this market report that I put together for you all to kind of gauge where we're at, and I really wish I had enough data to put one together this week. But it is what it is, folks. But I would say most classes of cattle did experience anywhere from a small percentage drop this week to a fairly large drop. Particularly hit hard were the lighter classes of calves, and in particular amongst those are the plainer type cattle. Folks, these plainer type cattle are taking it on the chin, plain and simple, and have been for the last month. If you are selling plainer cattle, you're in for quite a bad time of it right now. But the silver lining to all this is, have many people ask, is this a permanent downturn, or have we seen the high of this market cycle, so to speak? Personally, I don't think we have. I think this is maybe a momentary setback. I think that maybe we'll be able to recover some gains in prices on moving forward. You keep in mind, folks, and you've seen this on several of our um, Beef Brunch Educational Series talks, that 10-year market on these 550-pound steers. Folks, this time of year is historically where we bottom out on these calves prices, and we start to see some firming in the price starting in November on into December, so on and so forth. So this is just more of a seasonal trend, I would think. Talked to a friend of mine that deals in quite a few lightweight grazing weight type calves, buys a lot of calves, and they've experienced quite a bit of health problems due to the amount of dust and of course the wide temperature swings that we've been experiencing. Even on these hot days, it's nothing to see 30, 35-degree temperature swings during from the low to the high. And so they've been experiencing quite a bit of respiratory problems on these lighter weight calves. And the market, frankly, builds in a little bit of a discount this time of the year due to increased health concerns on those lighter weight cattle. The little data that I did see while trying to compile the report on the replacement cows, bred cows and pairs, they did drop a little bit week to week or report to report, but it wasn't much, and you have to kind of take those with a grain of salt because once again we're not sitting there and grading these cattle and seeing how quality the replacement cattle are that are coming through these sale barns and getting data collected on. So I know that there have been a couple of bull auctions already, and I believe we've got one coming up in our corner of the world. The Branch Ranch has got one scheduled for next Monday there at the ranch there in DeSoto Parish. Those folks have a good operation. They've got some quality Brangus bulls. Talked to their ranch manager this week, and they've got a really good lineup coming up in their sale. If you need more information, just reach out to us. That's the Branch Ranch there. The final thing that I'd like to mention, folks, is we talked quite a bit about nitrate testing on hay, in particular Johnson grass or any other forage crop that is susceptible to high nitrates and nitrate poisoning. folks, I just want to hammer that home one more time for you all. Please, if you're putting up any forage, Johnson grass in particular is the most common in our corner of the world, but yeah, there are several others that can be at risk. Sorghum Sudan, pearl millet, or others that can definitely accumulate some high nitrate levels. um, Please get that tested. Please get that tested. Our forage lab has the capability of testing those. I bring that up, and I'm trying to hammer that home because I just tested some hay for a producer that we frankly thought would be in the clear, but we had it nitrate tested as an afterthought, and it did come in the danger zone as far as nitrate levels. So try to avoid a wreck on that, folks. And if you have any forage, particularly Johnson grass, that looks like it could be a problem, please try to get that tested and save yourself some headache and heartache moving forward. I look forward to being back to normal next time we visit on this report. This year slipping by us, and I hope to have a very detailed market report next time we visit. Ashley, that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Vince, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. And always it's a pleasure to be here and give the update from the central and southern part of the state. Earlier today, unfortunately, we're not getting the rain that Lee talked of in the northwest part of the state. And I was up at State Fair on Thursday and Friday, assisting with the beef cattle shows there. And rain had us held up under the barn on Thursday, and I kept on watching the radar, see if it was coming south. And we were unlucky. It just kind of streamed across the north central and northwestern side of the state, and folks were extremely dry. In fact, I've had a couple of calls today, and people are still trying to cut corn stalks, with broadleaf signal grass and crabgrass coming up in it. And the very question that Lee just spoke of was, the concern for nitrate poisoning. And I told the two callers that I got, get it secured, get it bought, but you might have a nitrate issue. We had some tested last week, and it came back. It came back where it was in the acceptable range. We had some soybean hay that was tested for nitrates, came back in the acceptable range. So you just got to avoid the collisions, avoid the issues. We had some death loss associated with acorns as we're starting to see acorns fall. There's some problems with some oak poisoning. Eating too many acorns, and that's going to be a problem. Cattle are scrounging around for whatever they can find to eat. If you haven't, you might want to start putting hay out. I know from my personal cattle herd, we've been haying for 2 weeks now, and I did a recount of what hay I have, and I still think I'm okay. But we're powder house dry, ryegrass seeds out. We got some oats and ryegrass planted. Dug through it on the weekend. It's still powder house dry. It's not even anywhere close to germinating. So we're months behind now. So in our general area, it's a shame to say it. And I talked to one of the sailborne operators or one of the workers at one of the sailborns here locally last week, and he said, I just don't know where all these cattle keep coming from. But the concern is still there. They're having big runs at some of our local barns with a lot of grown cattle making their way to the sailborn. And that's going to be a scary afterthought and a scary future going into what our cattle herd is going to look like here locally, because we're not going to have many grown cattle left if we don't get some rain soon. And the bottom line is, earlier today, like I said, I was down near I-10 earlier this morning, and it's in the Crowley area, and it's dry. Past near some areas that were planted to ryegrass, you can see it's prepared and fixed and has been planted. You can see the buggy tracks or spreader truck tracks in it, but no chance of rain in sight for the next 10 or 12 days. And had a call today from one of the state specialists about planting a wheat trial. We want to do it, but we'd have to have a significant rain. And here we are looking at November 1, and it's just not going to happen. So the same story is with our winter forage plantings. It's a scary situation moving forward. We can expect lighter calves. We're seeing some conception rates that are off considerably because of the summertime heat, drought, a lot of lame cows walking around. We talked to local veterinarian. They're repairing a lot of feet right now on cattle that are just sore and have split feet. Heavy bred cows that are coming into calve that just having a hard time with our conditions. It's like West Texas or Arizona here, believe it or not. I sit 65 miles off the Gulf Coast, and it's very, very common for us to have a shower every day when it's in accordance. But man, we haven't had any measurable rain in a significant amount of time. That's going to be very, very critical moving forward. So I don't want to sound gloom and doom, but they're still trying to bail everything in sight. People are still calling for hay, believe it or not. I can't imagine that people, have such or lack of planning, when they come to realize that their normal hay production guy just don't have the quantity that they need this year. And still a lot of rice straw sitting out there. They haven't baled any of that because it's just deteriorated from moving from summer into winter now, because we definitely moved from summer temperatures of 87 degrees yesterday afternoon. I stuck my head outside the door at 5 this morning. It's like, oh my God, it's wintertime, from a 12-hour period. So it's just a very difficult time moving forward in the cattle world here in central and southwest Louisiana along the coastal areas. A lot of good friends that run cattle south of the intercoastal. They're big. Duck hunting is a big industry down there. They have no water in the marshes, so that's going to be a problem for those guys that rely on that for their part of their living. But they're in there and getting to do some work that they normally do with tractors and bush hogs and the sort. So just don't know where the good end is, if there is one. But I foresee there'll be more cattle sold in this part of the country if we don't get a significant rain in the next 10 to 15, 20 days, and the long range forecast does not support that. So we shall see. And people are well into their hay stocks right now, and it's all the supplements are expensive, and cows are licking them up and running through them like it's candy, and because they need it. So it's just how long someone's going to go economically and mentally on how long they can survive this.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew it was dry down south, but
Recording again.
okay, I don't know what just happened, y'all. Sorry. I think when Lee left us, the recording stopped for some reason. So I was saying when I was driving from the Iberia Station field day to field day in Livingston Parish a couple weekends ago, I knew it was dry, here and talked to some people, but I had not driven the Basin Bridge in a long time. And driving that really put it into perspective. Like Vince just said, the marshes are dry. Everything was so dry. It really kind of shocked me because I hadn't been just quite that far south in a while. Lee mentioned all the rain that was in the Northwest, and I think last week it pretty much hit the Northwest region, and it looked like it kind of maybe went up in a way, did not hit the Northeast part of the state very much either. I know it did not hit my house in Farmerville. So the Northeast kind of missed out on some of that as well, but they're getting it today, Monday, as we're recording. Mentioning those two field days, and I want to commend everybody that put those together. It was two wonderful events. Again, that was the Iberia or the Acadiana field day, fall field day, that was at the Iberia Research Station on the 21st, I believe. And then Bobby Bingham and the Livingston Parish Cattlemen's Association put one on in Denham Springs that same day, that afternoon. And so I appreciate the invitation to be at both of those and really enjoyed both of those and thought they were great programs. We appreciate y'all coming out to those events. The two upcoming things that we have on November 9th, that's a Thursday. There will be a bull breeding soundness exam, again, Thursday, November 9th. It's going to start at 8 a.m., but you do have to have an appointment to be a part of that. So you need to get a hold of either Miss Lanie Richard or Mr. Mike Dominique. It's going to be at Dominique Stockyard in Opelousas. Again, you have to have an appointment, so I'm going to put their contact information. There's also an online form that you could fill out if you'd rather do that. So I'll leave that there in the video and podcast descriptions. Then we also have another breeding soundness exam day in the northwest part of the state the following week. So on Tuesday, November 14th, Mr. Josh Salley is hosting one in Grand Cane. And I'll put all his contact information as well, because you do have to have an appointment for that one too. So y'all, that brings into, Lee mentioned it's bull sale time. People are gearing up for their fall breeding. So all of that fall breeding and I guess early winter, early spring, whatever you want to call that, the bulls that are going out in December and January, thinking forward to all of that. Get your bulls tested. When I was at the Livingston Parish field day, we were talking about that. And a lot of times it's not just a, is he fertile or not, but how fertile. We have a lot of bulls that are what we call subfertile, meaning they can get one bred, but it takes the cows, or it takes him several cycles for that cow to be able to get her settled. So instead of breeding her, getting a lot of them settled in the first 21 days of the breeding season, he's not hitting them until 60 or later in the 90-day season. That of course leads to later calving dates, which leads to lighter calves when you're selling. So have them tested, see what they're looking like. It is worth it. It is cheap. You will definitely make your money back, even if it's just one extra calf on the ground, or in the pounds of calves if you're able to get them to hit the ground a little bit earlier. That, I think, is all that we have today. Is a little short and sweet for y'all. Again, congratulations to all of our exhibitors the first half of State Fair. As Lee and Vince, I think, both mentioned, we're about to head into the beef round 2 starting on Thursday. We do have the market sale happening at State Fair on Wednesday. So if you know of any youth that are selling in that and you would like to do any kind of add-ons or anything, I know that the youth would definitely appreciate that. And we will be back with y'all in just a couple of weeks.